My father threatened to cut me from his will unless I married his choice. I showed him that his money meant nothing to me. My father, Reginald, controlled everything in our family with money. He inherited a fortune from his mother and used it like a weapon his entire life. He decided where we lived, what schools we attended, and what careers we pursued, all based on what impressed his friends at dinner parties. Every major decision in my life had to pass through his approval or face financial consequences. Growing up, I didn't realize this was unusual. I thought all fathers held money over their children's heads. I thought phrases like, "You'll get nothing when I die," were normal parts of family conversations. By the time I understood how twisted this was, I was already deep in the cycle of trying to earn his approval. My younger sister figured out the game earlier than I did. She rebelled at 17 and moved across the country at 18. My father cut her off completely and told everyone she was dead to him. He used her as an example of what happened when children disobeyed. I watched and learned to stay quiet. Then I met someone my father didn't choose. Her name was Faye, and she worked as a carpenter. She built custom furniture for wealthy clients and made a decent living doing work she genuinely loved. We met at a coffee shop when she complimented the book I was reading. We talked for 2 hours, and I gave her my number without thinking about what my father would say. For the first 6 months, I kept Faye secret. I saw her on weekends and pretended I was visiting friends. Eventually, my father found out because he always found out. Someone saw me with Faye at a restaurant and described her as working class. He called me demanding an explanation. I told him the truth. He asked what she did for a living, and I told him. He said absolutely not. He said he had someone better in mind for me. Her name was Lauren, the daughter of one of his wealthy friends. She worked in finance and came from old money and looked exactly like the kind of wife my father could brag about. I said I wasn't interested in Lauren. I said I was in love with Faye. He said love was irrelevant and financial security was what mattered. He said if I didn't end things and give Lauren a chance, he would remove me from his will entirely. I would get nothing. I would be as dead to him as my sister was. I asked for time to think. He gave me 2 weeks. During those 2 weeks, I thought about my sister, who had survived being cut off, and about Faye, who never once asked about my family's money. At the end of 2 weeks, I called my father and told him I chose Faye. He said I was making the biggest mistake of my life. He said he would have his lawyer change the will by the end of the week. Then he hung up. I expected to feel devastated. Instead, I felt free. The threat he had held over me my entire life finally landed, and I was still standing. He had no more power over me because he had used his only weapon. I couldn't be threatened with something that had already happened. I threw myself into building a life that didn't depend on his money. I got promoted twice in 3 years. Faye and I bought a small house together, and I reconnected with my sister. My father didn't speak to me for 2 years. Then his health started declining. The phone rang at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. My Uncle Marcus's voice came through shaky and rushed. He said my father collapsed in his bathroom that evening. He said the paramedics took him to Memorial Hospital. He said it was his heart and it looked bad. Faye said she would drive me there right now. The drive took 20 minutes through empty streets, and she kept one hand on my knee whenever she wasn't shifting gears. The fluorescent lights in the cardiac unit made everything look too bright and too cold at the same time. Room 4C was the third door on the left. I stopped walking about 15 feet away from it. Through the small window, I could see my father hooked up to machines that beeped and hummed. He looked smaller than I remembered. His hair was undone instead of perfectly combed, and he wore a hospital gown instead of the tailored suits he always insisted on. I made myself walk forward and pushed the door open. My father's eyes were closed. Then they opened. He turned his head on the pillow and saw me standing in the doorway. His eyes got wide, and he looked genuinely shocked that I was actually there. I walked closer to the bed. He opened his mouth to speak. Click here to watch part 2 of the story.